Imagine buying something for $1 that everyone else dismissed as junk, an old faded map, barely legible. Most men would hang it on a wall or toss it in the fire, but not Silas Boone. He saw something in its ancient lines, felt a whisper of a secret long buried, a secret that would lead him deep into the unforgiving Texas frontier, not for gold or glory, but for something far more precious, 4 lives trapped beneath the earth. This is the story of a lonely rancher who bought a map for $1 and followed it to a hidden nightmare, and how that act of rescue became a quiet reckoning for the darkness that tried to bury it. Silas Boone lived on his own, with wide Texas land as his only company. His face was weathered, browned by years under the sun. His quiet eyes saw more than most. He moved with steady purpose, like a man who knew exactly where his boots would land. His ranch was simple, a small house, sheds and fences stretching to the horizon. It was a good, quiet life, built on hard work and the rhythm of seasons. He found peace out here, away from town chatter, in the company of his cattle. Once a month, Silas headed into town. It was a dusty place, mostly saloons and a general store. Men barked over prices. The air hung thick with stale whiskey. Silas didn't talk much. He just walked, gathering supplies, observing the small dramas unfolding around him. On one trip, he found himself by a stack of old junk in the general store, rolled papers marked for $1. Most were trash. He was about to turn away when a piece of parchment caught his eye. It was stiff, yellowed, its edges frayed, tied with twine. Canyon of Whispers was scrawled across it in faded ink. He picked it up. It felt strangely heavy. He unrolled it slightly. The lines were rough, smudged, looking like a child's drawing. He considered putting it back, but something held him, a faint, almost imperceptible pull. It wasn't about treasure. It felt like an old memory. He paid the $1. The store owner just shrugged. Silas wrapped the map carefully, tucking it into his saddlebag. The ride home was long. The setting sun painted the sky. The silence of his land swallowed him again. The map was still rolled, a small mystery. He didn't know then that his $1 had bought more than just paper. It had bought him a road into a nightmare, and a path towards a reckoning he never saw coming. Days turned into a week. Silas had almost forgotten the map. He was busy mending fences. Then, one evening, after supper, he remembered it. The lamp on his kitchen table cast a warm light. He unrolled the parchment. It lay flat, stiff and cracked, covered in dust. He smoothed it with his palm. It showed a rugged, unfamiliar part of the land, far west, beyond usual ranching territories. Crude drawings of mesquite trees, a dry riverbed, jagged peaks. He traced the lines with a calloused finger. He wasn't a man who believed in hidden gold. Most prospector maps were folly. But this one felt strange. It wasn't just geographical. There were symbols he couldn't quite place. Small, almost invisible marks on a steep canyon wall. They looked like faint crosses or smudges. He lit his pipe and studied the map closer, turning it. His eyes, trained to spot small changes in the land, suddenly caught something. Tucked into the margin, barely visible. A series of 4 small, crudely drawn stick figures. They looked desperate, arms raised. Then, under them, a single word, scratched so faintly it looked like part of the parchment's natural decay. Trapped. He held his breath. He looked back at the stick figures, then at the mine symbol. It wasn't a typical mine symbol, just a vague indentation. But if it was a mine, why so far off the beaten path? No known lodes out there. A cold prickle ran up his spine. The cabin air felt heavy. It felt less like a treasure map and more like a warning, a desperate plea, coded and buried. He ran his thumb over the word, trapped. He thought about the desperate hands that might have drawn it. He pushed back from the table. The image of the stick figures stayed with him. He had a bad feeling. He rolled the map back up, but the image was burned into his mind. This wasn't just paper anymore. It was a secret, waiting to be unearthed. The unsettling feeling from the map didn't fade. It gnawed at Silas. A man used to the clear logic of the land didn't ignore a gut feeling. A few days later, he rode back into town, not for supplies, but for answers. He found Old Man Hemlock on the general store porch. Hemlock had seen more sun set than most. Silas bought a sarsaparilla, sat down. He started casual, talking weather. Then he turned the conversation. "Hemlock, you ever hear tell of a canyon of whispers out west, past the Red Buttes?" Silas asked, voice low. Hemlock's eyes sharpened. He stopped chewing tobacco. A heavy quiet settled. Might have heard the name, Hemlock mumbled, looking at the distant hills. Bad place. Bad luck out there. He spat. He didn't offer more. Silas tried again. Any old mining out that way? Beyond Thorne's claims? Hemlock's jaw tightened. Sterling Thorne owns most everything worth owning, he said flatly. Best not to go poking around his old business. Silas felt a prickle of recognition. Sterling Thorne, the name was familiar. Thorne's family had, years ago, tried to strong-arm Silas's own father out of land, using dirty tricks. It had caused hardship. Thorne's people were known for ruthless tactics. Silas noticed other men listening, looking nervous. A couple drifted away. Later, Silas spoke to Mrs. Gable, a quiet woman who cleaned at the saloon. He bought her coffee. Mrs. Gable, that canyon, Silas began. She wrung her hands. Best to leave old bones buried, Mr. Boone, she whispered, her eyes darting. The Thorne folk, they don't like folks digging up their past. Some things are best left to the dust. She spoke of women, years ago, vanishing. Nobody asked questions. Silas felt a cold knot tighten. The map wasn't just about an old claim, it was about a hidden truth. He knew he was looking for a grave. Back at his ranch, the map was a call. Silas spent days preparing. This was serious. He packed his shovel, a pickaxe, thick rope, his lantern and oil, extra water, salted beef, hardtack. He checked his Winchester, cleaned it, packed cartridges, even a small medical kit. This wasn't just about finding something, it was about being ready for anything. One morning, as the sky grayed, he saddled Buster, his bay horse. He spoke a quiet word to Old Blue, his dog, who watched with sad, knowing eyes. "Stay here, boy. Keep the place safe." He swung into the saddle. The ranch stretched out, vast and silent, as he rode away. The air was cool, smelling of dust and sage. He rode west, deeper into the frontier. The land grew wilder. Plains gave way to rougher terrain, scarred by dry creek beds, steep inclines, mesquite thickets snagged at his clothes. The map, though crude, slowly made sense. He recognized a distinctive twin peak, a peculiar rock formation. It was slow going. He led Buster through narrow, shadowed passes, climbed over crumbling rock slides. The sun beat down, relentless. His throat felt rough. Once Buster shied from a coiled rattler. Silas kept moving, eyes scanning, comparing the horizon to the faded lines. He was a man of patience, but urgency pulsed beneath his calm. He felt the map's pull, stronger with every mile. As dusk settled, painting the canyon walls in deep purples, Silas reached the general area. It was desolate. An echoing quiet hung in the air, broken only by wind whistling through unseen crevices. The towering rock walls seemed to swallow sound. It was where secrets could be kept for 100 years. He found a small sheltered alcove for Buster and made a discreet camp. He ate in silence, the air heavy, expectant. He felt it in his bones. He was close. The next morning the sun climbed high, baking the canyon walls. Silas started his search. He moved slowly, deliberately, like a predator. His eyes scanned every crevice, every loose rock, every shadow cast by the towering cliffs. The map was clutched in his hand. The heat was relentless. The canyon's silence was absolute, eerie. He walked for hours, feeling the sun, his canteen growing lighter. He wondered if he'd come all this way for nothing. Then he saw it. Not an obvious mine shaft. This was different. Hidden behind gnarled, overgrown vines. He pulled them back. Beneath, a large flat rock, weathered like the canyon wall, but clearly placed, it was camouflaged. Someone had gone to great lengths to hide this. He pushed and pulled. It shifted with a groan. Behind it, a dark, narrow opening. He stepped closer. The opening was just big enough for a man to squeeze through. It wasn't a natural cave. The edges looked crude, but man-made. As he approached, a faint, cold draft emanated from within. It carried a peculiar, stale scent, damp earth, minerals, and something old, something trapped. He ran his hand along the rough stone. His fingers brushed against something rusted, embedded in dirt. He knelt, a piece of a broken pickaxe handle. Nearby, a scrap of aged fabric, not natural. A cold certainty washed over Silas. His heart hammered. The map was right. This was the place. Adrenaline mixed with chilling dread. He secured his gear, tightened his belt, checked his rifle. He lit his lantern. The flame cast dancing shadows. He took a deep, steadying breath. He knew what he was about to face was likely terrible, but he couldn't turn back. He squeezed through, darkness swallowing him. Silas moved slowly, carefully, lantern held high. The shaft was narrow. The air was thick, damp, pressing in. Every step echoed, amplified, making the silence heavier. He heard his own ragged breath. He felt the crude walls, rough and cold. This wasn't a proper mine. It felt like a makeshift tunnel. He walked for what felt like forever, the tunnel winding deeper. His lantern beam cut through the blackness, revealing short stretches. He paused, listened. Nothing. Just the slow drip of water somewhere, like a ghostly clock. Then he heard it. Faint. So faint, he almost thought he imagined it. A soft, rhythmic tap. Not natural. It came from deeper in, barely audible over his own pulse. He kept moving, drawn by the sound. The tunnel opened slightly into a small cavern, then narrowed, then abruptly ended. A massive pile of rubble, fallen rock, and splintered timbers blocked the path. It was a collapse, but too neat, too complete. It looked engineered. The tapping stopped. Silas shouted, his voice swallowed by earth. "Hello, is anyone there?" He listened, holding his breath. Nothing. A sickening silence. His heart sank. He thought he was too late. Then, faint, a desperate, frantic rhythm. 4 distinct taps. Tap, 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 tap. His blood ran cold. He recognized it from his map. 4 figures. 4 lives. Then, a weak, hoarse sound. A groan. A whimper. Not one voice, but several, incredibly weak. They were alive. Still alive. His mind reeled. How long? The horror was immediate, visceral. He felt icy fury, hatred for whoever did this. He grabbed his pickaxe. He would get them out. He would tear this mountain apart if he had to. Silas didn't waste a second. He assessed the rockfall. Monumental. Too large to clear by hand, not quickly. But the taps came, faint and desperate. He had to try. He dropped his lantern, scrambled out, grabbing his shovel and rope from Buster. He squeezed back into the suffocating darkness. He started to work, grim. The pickaxe bit into rock with dull thuds. Dust rose, choking him, stinging his eyes. He worked with frantic urgency, every swing fueled by the thought of 4 trapped souls. His muscles screamed, sweat poured, mixing with dust. Blisters formed, tearing open. He ignored them. He worked until his arms felt like lead, then worked more. Every hour, he'd stop, tap on the rock with his pickaxe. Tap, tap, tap. Each time, after a tense wait, the weak reply came. Tap, tap, tap. It was the only thing that kept him going. That simple rhythm. A promise, a desperate plea, a reminder of the lives that depended on him. Once, smaller rocks showered him, but he gritted his teeth and dug. He used his rope to leverage larger stones. He didn't know how much time passed. A day blurred into night, then another day. He ate dry hardtack, rationed water. He worked until his body felt like collapsing. But the thought of those taps pushed him on. Then, after an eternity, he saw it, a sliver of light. Not from his lantern, but a crack in the rock. The air felt different, fresher. He gave a final desperate heave. A large section of rock gave way with a groan. He broke through. A small opening. He shone his lantern into the space beyond. 4 pairs of eyes, wide, disbelieving, stared back from the absolute darkness. He had found them. Through the opening, Silas shone his lantern. The beam cut through the blackness, revealing a small, damp cavern. Huddled together, incredibly frail, were 4 women. Their eyes, wide with terror and disbelief, stared back. They were gaunt, faces hollow, clothes tattered, covered in grime. They looked like ghosts. Silas quickly widened the opening, working carefully. "I'm here," he said, voice hoarse. "You're safe now." He reached a hand through. The first woman, hand trembling, took his. Her skin was cold. He helped her crawl out. She moved unsteadily, blinking against the faint lantern light, then the moonlight filtering down. She coughed, a dry rattling sound. He helped the next, then the next, until all 4 were out of the immediate collapse. He led them slowly, carefully, back through the tunnel. They stumbled, weak, but their eyes held desperate hope. When they emerged into the cool night air of the canyon, under the stars, they stopped. They looked up at the moon, faces streaked with dirt and tears. One, a young woman, whispered, "Stars." It was the first word he'd heard, fragile, full of wonder and pain. He gave them water from his canteen, small sips. They drank like parched earth. As they gained strength, they began to whisper their stories. Sarah, Martha, Eliza, and Clara, sisters or friends, traveling west for a new life. A foreman, Cutter, working for Thorne, had lured them with promises of work. They stumbled upon something, some illicit operation Thorne didn't want seen. The tunnel collapsed, intentionally, they now believed. They were left for dead, buried alive. Silas listened, jaw tightening. Cold, unwavering fury settled deep. This wasn't an accident. It was calculated evil. He looked at the women, their fragile bodies. He thought of Thorne, who had tried to steal his land, the man who had buried these innocent souls. Back at Silas's camp, as the women slowly regained strength, their voices became clearer. He built up the fire, its warmth a comfort. They named him Sterling Thorne, the same name Silas heard whispered in town, attached to land disputes that nearly broke his father. Thorne owned vast land, ran big mining operations. He was ruthless, greedy. The women recounted how Thorne's foreman, Cutter, lured them. They were desperate for wages. They spoke of the secret they stumbled upon, a hidden vein of rare mineral Thorne was extracting without proper claim, undermining a federal grant. They'd seen ledgers, overheard conversations. Too much. Thorne couldn't risk them talking. The collapse was no accident. It was a cover-up. They were buried to silence them. As Silas listened, his mind went back years. Sterling Thorne. The name was a festering wound in his family history. Thorne's company used every trick to squeeze out smaller ranchers, including his father. They tried to buy him out, threatened him, sabotaged fences, diverted water. No outright violence, but the pressure wore his father down, stole years from his life, cost them dearly. Silas remembered the quiet despair in his father's eyes. Thorne, a man who built his empire on others' backs, who saw people as expendable. Now this, burying 4 innocent women alive to protect his gains. Silas looked at the gaunt faces around the fire. He saw his own fight, his father's fight, reflected in their ordeal. Thorne wasn't just powerful, he was a cancer. Silas's hands clenched into fists. This wasn't just rescuing. This was personal. This was a chance to confront the darkness that haunted his family, to strike a blow against Thorne's casual cruelty. Cold, quiet rage built inside him. A reckoning was coming. The fire crackled, sending sparks into the sky. Silas sat, grim, listening to the women's halting words. Their ordeal, Thorne's cruelty, settled heavy. Sarah, the oldest, trembled. "He'll find us, Mr. Boone. Thorne always finds a way. We should disappear." Martha nodded, eyes wide with terror. "No one would believe us. He owns half the town." Silas looked at each face. He saw fear, weariness. He didn't make a grand pronouncement. He just met their gaze. "He won't find you here," Silas said, low, steady, "and he won't get away with this." It was a quiet statement. His words carried weight, a fragile assurance that settled over them. Hope flickered in their hollow eyes. He knew Thorne's influence. Thorne commanded respect and fear. His word was law. A direct accusation from 4 half-starved women, even with Silas, would be dismissed as lunacy. Thorne would suppress it. He'd have them arrested. Silas had to be smarter. He had to use Thorne's own nature against him, his greed, his pride, his public image. A plan formed, slow and intricate. It would expose Thorne not just for the women, but for the rot he was. It would use the land Thorne coveted as his undoing. He looked at the map again, then at the women. They were fragile, but undeniable proof. He would protect them, hide them, until the moment was right. They needed to rest, to regain strength. He would take them to his ranch, a safe place. He would give them time to heal. Then he would move. He would make Thorne pay for every desperate tap, every stolen breath. Silas led the women back to his ranch. The journey was slow, careful. They were so weak. He put them in the spare room, cleaned it, brought in fresh blankets. He gave them the best food he had, warm stew, fresh bread, real coffee. They ate slowly, as if unsure it was real. Days blurred into weeks. Under Silas's quiet care, they began to mend. The hollows in their cheeks filled. Their eyes lost some fear. Their laughter, hesitant at first, echoed in his usually silent home. The ranch, once solitary, was now filled with healing and growing trust. Silas spent evenings listening to them. He meticulously wrote down every detail they remembered: Cutter's name, ledger markings, the date they were trapped, almost 2 months ago. He also returned to the hidden mine, not to dig, but to gather evidence. A specific ore fragment Thorne illegally extracted, a discarded piece of mining equipment unique to Thorne's company, even a crude symbol carved into rock by a previous victim, matching a mark on his map. The map wasn't just a clue, it was a desperate message, a plea for truth. He knew he couldn't do this alone. Thorne's reach was long. Silas rode to town again, with purpose. He sought Sheriff Brody, a stern, quiet man he believed fair, despite Thorne's influence. Brody had a reputation for honesty. Silas didn't reveal the women immediately. He started with a cautious conversation about Thorne's old land claims, the Whispering Canyon vanishing from maps, and a unique mineral he'd heard might be there. He hinted at irregularities, old rumors of Thorne's practices. Brody listened, face impassive. Silas saw the wheels turning. Brody had suspicions about Thorne, grudges he couldn't act on without proof. Silas also visited Parker, the newspaper editor, a young man dedicated to truth. He planted seeds of a sensational story, not about trapped women yet, but a potentially massive mineral discovery that could shake land claims, a story to draw Thorne out. He was laying groundwork, preparing the field. Silas continued ranch work, but his mind was on the plan. He had to make Thorne reveal himself before dropping the bomb. Brody and Parker did their part. Silas subtly leaked information about an incredibly rich, unknown vein of gold and a rare mineral in the Whispering Canyon. It was fabricated bait, designed for Thorne's avarice. Thorne, as expected, took the bait. Rumors circulated, growing louder, fueled by Silas's nudges. Thorne, believing every piece of earth held a fortune, began to move. He made discreet inquiries about old land deeds, tried to secretly buy adjoining plots. He was convinced this discovery was real, and wanted it. His arrogance was his downfall. He was too confident. Silas ensured Thorne's interest became public. Parker ran a cryptic article hinting at a sleeping fortune in an uncharted canyon, mentioning a prominent local businessman securing rights. This forced Thorne's hand. He couldn't afford for a competitor to swoop in. Thorne, with bravado, announced his intention to formally acquire the rights to the Whispering Canyon through a public auction or town council meeting. He wanted to show his power, warn off prospectors. He even spoke of a new, grander mining operation. He had no idea he was walking into a snare. Meanwhile, at the ranch, the women were ready, stronger, resolve hardened by the thought of justice. They understood the plan, hidden, safe, but prepared to come forward when the moment was right. Their appearance would be the final, undeniable blow Thorne couldn't anticipate. The trap was set. Silas waited for Thorne to step into the light he craved. The day of Thorne's public declaration arrived. The town hall was packed. Sterling Thorne, immaculate in his expensive suit, stood at the podium. He looked smug. His voice boomed as he spoke of his new acquisition, the Whispering Canyon, how it would bring prosperity, how he always had an eye for potential. He was confident, arrogant, dismissing whispers of old superstitions or challenges. He thought he was untouchable. Silas stood at the back, quiet. Sheriff Brody was beside him, arms crossed, gaze steady. Editor Parker sat near the front. Thorne was boasting when Silas, in his weathered rancher clothes, walked slowly forward. He didn't speak. He simply, deliberately, unfurled the dollar map. Its faded parchment seemed to glow. He held it up, pointing to the spot Thorne was claiming, showing the original, nearly erased name, the Canyon of Whispers. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Thorne glared. "What is this nonsense, Boone? An old piece of junk?" As he finished, the doors at the back opened. Sheriff Brody stepped aside. 4 women, pale but standing tall, walked in. Sarah, Martha, Eliza, and Clara. Their clothes were plain, but their eyes held a quiet fire. Their appearance brought a sudden, shocking silence. Every head turned. Thorne's face went white. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. The women didn't need to speak. Their presence, standing there, alive after being left for dead in the very canyon Thorne publicly claimed, was damning testimony. Silas simply gestured from the map to the women, then to Thorne. "These women were trapped in a hidden shaft in this canyon," Silas said, voice low but cutting through the silence. left to die after they stumbled on Thorne's illegal mining operation there. The map. It was a warning. The crowd gasped. Thorne stammered denials, shouted, but his voice cracked, bravado gone. He was exposed, his facade shattered. The treasure he sought was revealed as the burial ground of his victims. His public humiliation was absolute. Sheriff Brody, grim-faced, stepped forward. "Sterling Thorne, you're under arrest for illegal mining, attempted murder, and conspiracy." Thorne tried to bolt, but deputies moved in. The crowd parted, some shouting, others staring in stunned silence. The revenge was complete. Not with a bullet, but with truth, quietly unearthed and brilliantly revealed. Sterling Thorne was taken away. News spread like wildfire. The full story of the hidden mine, the trapped women, and Thorne's cover-up filled Editor Parker's newspaper. Thorne's empire crumbled. His associates were questioned, his wealth confiscated. He faced court, his name dragged through mud, his power and reputation irrevocably destroyed. He lost everything. The community, shocked, then ashamed of their fear, rallied around the women. They received support, medical care, and a safe place. Sarah, Martha, Eliza, and Clara, no longer victims, found work in town, rebuilding their lives. They often rode to Silas's ranch, bringing pies, their laughter warm in his home. Their presence transformed the solitude. Silas was no longer just a rancher. He was a protector, a man who had brought light from darkness. Silas didn't seek fame. He quietly returned to his cattle, his fences, his land's rhythm. But things had changed. Townsfolk offered respectful nods, quiet thanks. Farmers brought small gifts. There was new respect for the quiet man who stood up to power. His ranch became a symbol. The hidden mine entrance was sealed, a cairn built nearby, a quiet memorial to the past, and a warning for the future. Silas found new purpose beyond his land. Always a man of quiet integrity, he was now a beacon of justice. He found new meaning in the quiet. His home, once an empty echo, held memories of laughter, shared stories. He knew he'd done something profoundly right. He'd given a voice to the silenced and made Thorne answer for his sins. The land felt cleaner, a great weight lifted. Years passed, quietly, steadily, like a deep river. Silas Boone grew older, a little slower, his hair gray, but his eyes held the same resolve. His ranch thrived, a testament to his endurance. It was more than land, it was peace, resilience, proof that truth, however buried, can be unearthed. The women he rescued, Sarah, Martha, Eliza, and Clara, lived in peace, finding happiness. They never forgot Silas, his quiet heroism. Their children and grandchildren grew up hearing the story of the quiet rancher and the dollar map, a cautionary tale of greed, a legend of the man who listened to Earth's whispers. Silas was no longer defined by aloneness. He loved his land's quiet, but it was richer now, filled with echoes of lives saved, justice served. Neighbors visited, not for gossip, but for quiet conversation, his grounded wisdom. He became a pillar, a silent anchor. The dollar map, more faded, hung framed in his cabin, a constant reminder of the events it set in motion. It symbolized how small, overlooked things hold great truths, and how one person's determination can bring down evil. The revenge wasn't loud or violent, but absolute, justice delivered with a quiet, powerful hand. The sun still set over the Texas plains, painting the sky. And on his ranch, Silas Boone found profound peace. He had done what was right, found his true purpose. His legacy wasn't wealth, but the truth he uncovered, the lives he saved, and the quiet strength that shone brightest in darkness.